Republican wants to strike Russia for meddling in our election.
Every American should be alarmed by Russia's attacks on our nation.
We'll show you where this is leading, plus a new plan to seal off our southern border by giving the job of building the wall to inmates.
In this case, it's a win-win for everybody.
Plus, Republicans have found a way to scrap Obamacare, so we'll show you what will change and how it affects families in Tampa Bay. This is Money, Power, and Politics.
Yeah, Marissa, that's where we'll lead off, because we now know that Republicans do have the votes to take out or repeal at least parts of Obamacare, and that is on track for next week.
And in taking out pieces, they can take it down. So the big question is, how will they replace it?
Well, we have some ideas here, but to understand where the story is going, you really have to step back and take a look at how it all got started.
I happen to be a proponent of a single-payer universal health care plan.
President Obama wanted government-run health care for everyone, something like Medicare for all. And Democrats who controlled both chambers of Congress were on the path to passing that. But then Senator Ted Kennedy died, and Democrats appeared to be at least one vote short. So Obama regrouped with a plan to require people to buy private health insurance, something that he ironically opposed on the campaign trail.
A mandate was the solution. We could try that to solve homelessness by mandating everybody buy a house.
That concept that everyone should have insurance and that they should pay for it was first promoted by Mitt Romney.
Everybody should have insurance. They should pay.
Romney first said his concept in Massachusetts should be a national model, but then ripped Obama's plan to take it national, and Democrats passed it without a single Republican vote.
I wonder why we don't have single payer. He used the Republican plan on them, and now they got to eat it.
Now, on the upside, Obamacare is helping 20 million people get health care. People who cannot afford it on their own are getting federal subsidies to help cover their costs. It also helps people with pre-existing medical conditions get coverage, and it lets many adult children stay on their parents' plans for a while. But to help pay for all of this, the administration assumed young adults who don't tend to worry much about their health would rush out and buy health care. That was supposed to lower our premiums.
This law will lower premiums. Your premiums will go down.
And everybody will have lower rates.
But guess what happened next?
I don't remember saying that everybody in the country would have a lower premium.
There are several reasons why rates did not go down as supporters had hoped. One of the biggest, though, not as many young, healthy people signed up for coverage as the government hoped. So we now have more older and sicker people, causing costs to go up higher than the administration expected. And that's exactly what USF Health Professor Dr. Jay Wolfson predicted before all the changes kicked in.
There's no question, but as we move forward with the Affordable Care Act, we will be paying more in insurance premiums and in co-payments.
So while Republicans finally appear to have the votes to dismantle Obamacare, they've been chipping away at this course, Marissa, for years.
Yeah, and Democrats lost more public support after a series of blunders.
By the time the vote has taken place, not only I will know what's in it, you'll know what's in it.
That's not exactly how it played out.
We have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
The 900-page health care law was so complicated it even confused the Democrats who passed it.
I think it's very confusing.
Amongst other things, the law required subsidies to help people get health care, but then declared those same subsidies illegal.
We know that most Congress people don't read what they write.
Democrats said they goofed up the text, declaring the subsidies illegal by mistake, and that triggered an embarrassing court challenge.
It's just a pain in the neck.
The launch of the Obamacare website was a mess. It was riddled with glitches and embarrassed the president yet again. Then there was the promise he couldn't keep.
If you like the plan you have, you can keep it.
As it turns out, an estimated 4 million people lost their plans.
That's on me.
And remember how even Democrats complained about the law being too confusing?
I think it's very confusing.
Well, Jonathan Gruber, one of the architects of Obamacare, says it was deliberately confusing. In an epic gaffe, he said they wrote it that way to exploit the stupidity of the American people.
It's a very clever, basic exploitation of the lack of economic understanding of the American voter.
Gruber said they made it hard to follow to hide the costs and throw off the public.
Lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever.
All of that helped Republicans win the message war, and Obamacare supporters took another hit when former President Bill Clinton ripped it just before the election.
And then the people are out there busting it, sometimes 60 hours a week, wind up with their premiums doubled and their coverage cut in half. It's the craziest thing in the world.
And then all of that, of course, to varying degrees set up this coming fall of Obamacare. But we still don't know when Republicans will phase this out. That's the other big question, the timetable in this.
Yeah, well, they could strike it out this year, but Republican leaders have said that they won't pull the rug out from people, so they could keep it up for a couple more years or try to make a smooth transition.
And this is a big question mark because right now we know Republicans within the caucus appear to be divided on that. You have one side that wants the gradual phase out. The other does not want Obamacare to linger past the next midterm election. Here we are.
Yeah, and at the same time, they still have to figure out what exactly the replacement will be.
And that's our next step here. Where do we go from here? We have some sense of what's coming based on what we've heard so far from Mr. Trump and his pick to run the Department of Health, Tom Price.
Price would give the same amount of money to everyone. And then instead of a lot of mandates, the health insurance industry would be free to compete to provide the most attractive package of benefits they could.
Basically, Tom Price wants to remove the current rules. Under his plan, people who do not have health insurance would still get tax credits to buy it, but those credits would be based on age rather than income. He's also called for scaling back federal money for Medicaid, that's health care for the poor, and he wants to rework Medicare, or health care for seniors. He specifically wants to give seniors subsidies to buy private coverage on the open market. Meanwhile, President-elect Trump ran on making the health insurance market more competitive. His goal here is to bring down costs by letting insurance companies compete across state lines. He's also said he wants to keep the popular parts of Obamacare, and he spelled that out on 60 Minutes.
Are you going to make sure that people with preconditions are still covered?
Yes, because it happens to be one of the strongest assets.
You're going to keep that?
Also, with the children living with their parents for an extended period, we're going
to keep
very
that?
much try and keep that. Adds cost, but it's very much something we're going to try and keep.
Also in 60 Minutes, Trump said he wants universal health care, something President Obama intended but could not deliver.
Everybody's got to be covered. This is an un-Republican thing for me to say.
Universal health care.
I am going to take care of everybody. I don't care if it costs me votes or not. Everybody's going to be taken care of much better than they're taken care of now.
The uninsured person
right.
is going to be taken care of.
They're going to be taken care of.
How?
I would make a deal with existing hospitals to take care of people. And you know what? This is probably...
Make a deal. Who pays for it?
The government's going to pay for it, but we're going to save so much money on the other side.
Now, Obama intended universal health care by making people buy coverage if they can afford it and expanding Medicaid for those who can't. But states like Florida refused to go along with this plan to expand Medicaid.
And that's where that came up short. Now, you just heard Mr. Trump say on 60 Minutes that he wants to cover the uninsured by making deals with hospitals, working with hospitals. We still need to see the details in that, but it sounds similar to Governor Rick Scott's approach of wanting to offer a pool of government money to hospitals who treat people who cannot, Marissa, afford their bills. Okay, we've got a lot of ground still to cover. Coming up, the proposal to build Trump's wall with inmates and new information about the email hacks before the election.
Plus, we'll look into a weird mistake in the Florida Supreme Court and the war over water between Florida and Georgia after the break. President-elect Trump tapped former Indiana Senator Dan Coats to serve as Director of National Intelligence.
And he served as ambassador to Germany during President George W. Bush's first term. Then he returned to the Senate and just retired.
The current Director of National Intelligence says there's no doubt Russia interfered in the presidential election.
Here we go. James Clapper tied the hacking of Democratic emails that embarrassed Hillary Clinton to a high level of the Russian government. And Senator John McCain said we therefore need to do much more to punish Russia and Vladimir Putin.
Clapper just testified that
well, he said high level.
He said the highest level, actually, is what he said.
The highest
That's
level?
what he said, yes.
So you're confident that Putin was directing the operation?
No one believes something happens as far as Russian behavior is concerned without Vladimir Putin being involved.
And Clapper says an unclassified report will be released to the public sometime next week.
And as for President-elect Trump, he'll get his briefing on this tomorrow. So far, he has not yet accepted the conclusion from our intelligence community that points the finger specifically at Vladimir Putin and the Russian government.
And WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange leaked the emails but insists he did not get them from Russia.
Can you say to the American people unequivocally that you did not get this information about the DNC John Podesta's emails, can you tell the American people 1,000% you did not get it from Russia or anybody associated with Russia?
We can say, we have said repeatedly over the last 2 months that our source is not the Russian government and it is not a state party.
Again, Mr. Trump is skeptical of Russia's involvement in the hacking, but today he attacked the media again for saying he agrees with Assange. He tweeted, "The dishonest media likes saying that I am in agreement with Julian Assange. Wrong, I simply state what he states. It is for the people to make up their own minds as to the truth. The media lies to make it look like I am against intelligence when in fact I am a big fan."
Meanwhile, the FBI Director James Comey is defending his decision to reopen the investigation of Hillary Clinton's emails just days before the election. Fascinating private memo he sent to his staff. Comey wrote, "I would be lying if I said the external criticism does not bother him at all, but the truth is it does not bother him much because of the way in which we made the decision." Comey has yet to speak publicly about any of this since the election.
And the president-elect and his team are working on his inauguration speech, and we have some insight as to what he may say.
Yeah, we sat down a little earlier with Adam Goodman, Republican strategist, who, by the way, on our show correctly predicted the results of the election and much more over the course of 2016. So with 2017, we asked him to put on his thinking cap for what he expects from Mr. Trump in his big speech.
What he's got to do, Craig, he's got to, I think, blend two elements of Reagan, which is saying government's not the answer. And I think he has to have a little FDR, and the FDR that people don't remember as much, which is action and action now. That fits Donald Trump. And, you know, you've heard me here before talk about the now deal instead of the new deal. I think the now deal should be at the heart of the inaugural speech to give people confidence that maybe, just maybe, we're going to get government working again.
And during that speech, I think he may also try to jumpstart his plan to build a wall on the Mexican border, something to watch for sure.
Yeah. And a sheriff in Massachusetts says he should build it with inmates across the nation.
Fascinating proposal. Of course, some things to think about here. You'd have the challenge of securing the inmates who would be securing the wall and, of course, trusting their construction skills and transporting them hundreds or thousands of miles, then finding somewhere to confine them during the project that could take a while. But Sheriff Tom Hodgson says this is still a win-win because it could save us some tax money and, look at this, help the inmates.
It makes all the sense in the world to have them doing that, in addition to which they'll also be preventing people from sneaking in and taking jobs they could otherwise get when they're released from prison.
Well, there you have it. No response from Trump's team on that particular proposal. But check out our YouTube channel. You'll find our investigations of illegal immigration and how a prior plan to wall off our border failed. Search for Craig Patrick's Money, Power, and Politics and click subscribe. You can also catch up on our humor and satire segments, like our extended look at why Jeb Bush has told us he will not be attending Trump's inauguration.
You know what's happening to Jeb's crowd, as you know, right down the street? They're sleeping.
Donald Trump is a jerk.
Calling an opponent a loser, a whiner, and a liar.
Well, he is a whiner.
So he stopped calling himself the Joyful Tortoise.
I'm a joyful warrior.
And hoped it's not too late to catch that feisty hare.
Please clap.
That's just sad.
Okay, coming up, shifting gears to state news, we're going to explain why Florida and Georgia are fighting over the same water and how it could crush Florida's oyster harvest.
And we'll show you why the state Supreme Court could nix the death penalty here in Florida.
Governor Rick Scott has a plan to try to prevent the next Pulse nightclub attack or other strike of terrorism, and he wants to spend millions of dollars in the coming budget to make this happen. So
that's right.
We're going to take a look at what he's got planned here, Marissa.
Yeah, the governor made his announcement today with Attorney General Pam Bondi and law enforcement. He wants to spend nearly $6 million to hire more counterterrorism agents.
This $5.8 million investment will allow FDLE to hire 46 agents who specialize in counterterrorism and intelligence. Terror like what we saw in the attack on Pulse nightclub is a threat to our state and nation, and we need specialists that are solely dedicated to identifying these terrorists and stopping them before they attack. These specialized agents will be organized into counterterrorism squads that are stationed in each of Florida's FDLE's 7 regions.
Florida and Georgia have been fighting over water for years, and now they only have a couple of weeks to come to an agreement.
Yeah, this one's been going on for a while here. The problem is that the state of Georgia needs more and more water for, among other things, its growing population, so it's diverting more and more of the water that we share with our state to their state. And that's threatening Florida's oyster industry, which is clustered north of Tampa Bay around Apalachicola. That's the problem on our side.
So Florida says Georgia's overconsumption of water has damaged Apalachicola Bay and the seafood industry. And Georgia says that limiting its use of the water system would harm the state's economy and its agriculture industry. A special master appointed by the U.S. Supreme Court has given Florida and Georgia a January 24th deadline to strike a deal.
Hopefully he got the nuances and the complexities of it and can make a good decision that will help Florida without jeopardizing the economy in Georgia. And I think it's all very possible.
Now, the states went to trial in December. If Florida and Georgia cannot find a compromise, the special master will issue his recommendation.
Which may finally bring this to a close. Meanwhile, in state news, look, we ran a list of blunders in government for the new year just last night, and tonight we can add another one to the list with the Florida Supreme Court. Florida kind of sort of wiped out the death penalty by mistake for at least a few hours. 4 hours yesterday, the state Supreme Court issued an order stating that prosecutors cannot seek the death penalty in capital cases. But the court noted some cases in that order that are still pending. So then it said, it reversed the order, basically saying, oop, never mind, nothing to see here. But here's why this is important, besides being confusing and awkward. It's a sign that the Supreme Court clearly has a problem with the death penalty statute as it is, and likely would rule it later unconstitutional this year. So state lawmakers who support the death penalty may well want to take a look at that statute. There's a good chance that we may have a special session, or this is something they may take up in regular session to try to address. At least they got some notice that they have some issues with the Supreme Court as it relates to capital punishment. All right, what's coming up?
Oh, very interesting. Well, coming up, the tweet from President-elect Trump that Republicans may regret. We'll show you how Democrats are using it against Republican leaders in Congress after the break.
Well, President Obama said that he struggles with the theater of politics, but President-elect Trump certainly does not. He excels at it. So does Bernie Sanders. Well, take a look at this.
Yeah, so he's on the Senate floor yesterday, and he pulls out a tweet from Donald Trump from May 7th, 2015. So this is before he had even announced that he was going to run for president. It said, "I was the first and only potential GOP candidate to state that there will be no cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Huckabee copied me."
Yeah, and with that, he's hoping that they can use that against the Republicans, because Republicans on Capitol Hill have plans to change all of those programs. That's something we're going to watch in the coming days. That's our show, though, tonight, folks. We'll see you tomorrow night. Take care.